Everyone's the same.
Dan Proft, Amy Jacobson. We are now pleased to be joined by Kentucky Senator and Republican presidential candidate Rand Paul. Senator Paul, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
So some State Department emails related to one former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, are to be released maybe as soon as today, a first batch. I'm wondering, I know you're not an ends justify the means guy, but would you support NSA mass data collection if we could get our hands on all of Hillary's emails?
You know, even for Hillary Clinton, I think that the warrant ought to have her name on it, and I'm not saying that won't happen someday. But when you look at anybody's records, and this is precisely why you don't do general warrants, because let's say Republicans were in charge and we wanted to collect the data of people we didn't like. That's really the whole purpose of the Fourth Amendment, is to make sure that you don't have generalized suspicion or generalized warrants. And when we fought the revolution, this was a big deal. John Adams said that the spark that led to the revolution was James Otis fighting against the writs of assistance, where the British soldiers wrote warrants with nobody's name on them.
So can you have security and liberty at the same time? Do you ever see that being possible?
Yeah, and in fact, I think we maybe are less secure because of the way we're doing it. I think because we collect so much data, we can't look at all of it, and we get lost in the data. So, for example, two of the recent terrorist attacks here in our country, the Sonarif boys, the Boston bombers of the Boston Marathon, we knew about the older brother. We had interviewed him. We may not have had enough information, but I guarantee you we had enough suspicion from that interview and from the tip from the Russians that we could have easily gotten warrants to look at his phone. I don't know if we were doing that, but I'd be voting for it. So the thing is if you call me and I'm the judge and you say the Russians gave us a tip to this guy and he's going back to Chechnya, so should we follow him and look at him because of these activities? And if I'm the judge, I'm going to say, yes, here's a warrant. With a warrant, you can actually get more information. Now, you can get a lot through metadata, but here with metadata, you're collecting innocent Americans' information, 300 million people's information, and that really sounds like a general warrant to me if you're not saying one individual and you're not saying what you're suspicious of and you're not asking a judge. So I think the program is illegal. The Second Appeals Court right below the Supreme Court agrees with me. So I think the program should end, and I'm going to do everything I can to stop the bulk collection of innocent Americans' phone call records.
What about the Patriot Act more generally? Can the Patriot Act be amended and saved? I mean, there is a court provision in the Patriot Act. It's the FISA court. It's been a bit of a rubber stamp, arguably. But can the Patriot Act be saved?
Here's part of the problem with the FISA court. The FISA court ruled that the bulk collection of your records is okay. And the court said that that was laughable because one of the requirements of the Patriot Act is that the information is relevant to an investigation. But the way they're doing the collection of your phone records is they're vacuuming them all up, and then the investigation comes later at some other time. So how could they be relevant to an investigation that has not yet even started? And so the court said that was laughable, but the FISA court said, hey, that's fine, here's your rubber stamp, go do whatever you want. The other thing about the FISA courts, it's in secret, and so there's some evidence, though, that they're not even questioning what the NSA tells them. When the NSA says it's relevant, there is no debate over relevance. They just accept the NSA at their word. But the government has shown not to be necessarily trustworthy here. James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, when he was asked whether they were doing bulk collection of Americans' phone records, he said no in open hearings, and basically that turned out to be a lie.
But it turns out, isn't the NSA going to start compromising and collect data on a case-by-case basis?
There's no evidence the NSA would do anything unless we force them to. I mean, we would have to, by law, restrict what they're doing and change the law. And I'm going to do everything I can to change the law. We have several, Senator Wyden and I have several joint amendments that we're introducing. One of them ends bulk collection. Another one says that if you're going to use a lower standard to try to catch terrorists, a standard beneath what the Constitution requires, that then you can't use that information to try to convict people of domestic crime. See, they promised us this was to be for terrorists, but 99% of the time, Section 213, the sneak and peek, where they go in your house without ever telling you, it's now being used for domestic drug crime, not for terrorism. The IRS is now using some data they collect through terrorism warrants, so's the DEA. So what we're doing is we've gone beneath the constitutional protections, but we're using it to allegedly go after tax evaders and local drug crime, not terrorists.
We're talking to Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, Republican presidential candidate. Senator Paul, I wonder how you would characterize some of your competitors, like Jeb Bush, who believes that the PATRIOT Act is instrumental to our national security. Perhaps there should be amendments, particularly in the light of the appeals court decision you referenced, but it is salvageable. Are those individuals with whom you just have a disagreement, or are those individuals who just don't respect the Bill of Rights?
I think that, Jeb Bush's opinion is sort of the inside the Beltway kind of opinion, that we have to have this Patriot Act and that we couldn't rely on just the Constitution. But if you interview people outside the Beltway, when you get into the heart of America, over 80% of those under 40 believe the government's gone too far and that we shouldn't allow them to have bulk collection of our records, that we should individualize warrants, individualize suspicion, and ask for a judge's signature before we go into someone's house or invade their records. So, no, I just think the people who are for continuing this program are on the wrong side of history, and I don't think they're giving a full appreciation to the Bill of Rights and how important it is.
I want to switch topics. You're a libertarian, conservatarian. I don't know how you characterize yourself, but based on your belief in free minds and free markets, as I understand it, I want you to comment on free trade agreements. And it seems to me on the Trade Promotion Authority, you've given some conflicting statements about when you will and will not support free trade agreements. Could you explain?
I think in general the trade is good. I think trade is good for a couple of reasons. I think if you measure the economic benefits of trade, while there are and is dislocation of jobs, you change from one type of sector to another as you have foreign competition. The net result of the consumer is able to buy more things at a cheaper price when you have trade. The other advantage to trade is that I think it makes us less likely to fight. So the interconnectedness between us and other countries makes it just less likely that we'll have war. Trade Promotion Authority is a little bit different, though. Basically, it's a bill that is passed by Congress that gives up the power to amend legislation. We give up the power to amend a trade agreement. Now, some say, and this is the argument that's made up here, well, you can never get a trade agreement if you don't give up that power. I'm not sure that's exactly true, and it's at least disputable. They've been working on this new Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement for 3 or 4 years without Trade Promotion Authority. And so I've been one who consistently says that I'm worried about Congress giving up power to the presidency, whether it's regulatory power, health care, Obamacare power, Dodd-Frank power, immigration, war power, any of these powers that really should reside in the legislature. I've been concerned about giving them to the presidency. So I think my suspicion on TPA is consistent with a long-held suspicion that we've given too much power to the executive branch.
Senator Rand Paul, great to meet you a couple years ago when you spoke at the Lincoln Day dinner in Schaumburg here in the northwest suburbs. And good luck with the campaign. Don't let Lindsey Graham get you down.
Yep, I'll be back up there soon. We're going to be at the DuPage County Lincoln Day dinner on
May 27th.
Yep, May 27th at the Sheraton Hotel. If anybody wants to look at it, go on to randpaul.com and you can find out where we're going to be in Chicago.
And I'm impressed you still have your voice after that 10.5-hour filibuster. You feeling okay?
It's a little raspy, and my voice will take a few days to recover. My feet are still sore, but I'm getting over it.
Senator Paul, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.